Hi, welcome to this herringbone weave ring design. Herringbone weave is often used in pendants and earrings, but it's really lovely for small, delicate rings. This one is made with a white topaz, and this one is a bit more chunky, as you can see. But you can use small crystals as well. Anything goes. So I'm going to do it with the pink opal. They're about 6mm and they look really dainty with this sort of design. So I'm using 0.8 of a millimeter silver plated copper wire, but you can use sterling silver, gold, you name it, any wire will do. But 0.8 is the one I'm using because it feeds onto my bead. And I'm also cutting 0.4 millimeter. I'm cutting about 10 inches of the silver plate and about 8 inches of the thin 0.4, but you might not use it all. And what I'm doing is I'm fixing the 0.4mm wire, just wrapping it onto the center of the long length, and I'm making sure that it's not too bound around, just a couple of binds. Squeeze the wire around so that it's not going to slip around. And now I feed the pink opal or the bead or whatever bead you're going to use for your center. You feed it onto the main thicker wire, and you bring the thin wire around the top part of the bead, and then where it touches the thicker wire you wrap once around. So you can see it's now surrounded by the wire on one side, and then you bring it around the opposite side and do the same thing. So now it's completely surrounded and framed with the thin wire, and you carry on bringing the wire around the bead, and every time you bring it round, you bring it tight around, but you bring it to the back of the last wire. So you see it's going behind the first one, and then again behind the next one, and then a complete wrap around the main stem wire, and then again, and you carry on doing that until it'll eat up the wire, but it also come to the depth of the back of the bead by doing this. And just keep going. It looks complicated when you see the finished ring, but when you see how it's done, it's really not complicated at all. It's just keeping the wire nice and taut so that there's not big gaps, and you just bring it behind every time and wrap every time around the main stem. So once you've decided, because don't forget, you don't want it so wide that it doesn't, goes further across your finger. That's about probably the depth of the bead now. So I can feel that's, and that's about the right size for a finger. So I'm going to cut off my long binding wire now and just make sure that's nice and secure on my main stem. So at this point you want to place it onto your ring mandrel, or if you've got a wooden cylindrical dowel, anything to wire wrap. If you don't have one, you could probably do it around a lipstick or something. And then bring the end wires completely around and cross over the front. So one will go above and one will go below the weave. So you should have 2 wires at the back. So that's the actual ring shank. And now take it off and bend a right angle just by the last bit of weaving. So one will go down, so you want to bend it right up. One will go down one way and one will come around the other way, because one's above and one's below. I've got a little bit too much wire. I think I was thinking of making it bigger, but So I'm just going to snip a bit off, and these lengths of 0.8, the extended wire of the shank, now get wrapped once or twice around just by the side of your weave, and that's going to secure everything together. I'm not going to cut it off at this point in case I want to make a little spiral on the side. I'll decide that once I've done the other side. So I'm just wrapping again and securing. I would actually say this is the most difficult bit of the ring, because you don't want to distort the shank, you don't want to pull it too hard so you sort of like misshape the whole thing. So you've got to do this very gently, let the wire, you see how I'm just bringing it around, and then tiny little manipulations, not pulling too quickly. Everything's done in little tiny movements and steps. So now I'm just cutting off the excess, and I need to neaten up the ends, make sure nothing's scratchy. You have to push them all down. I've got to always put it back onto your ring mandrel or ring triblet, because you want to make sure that you haven't misshaped it when you're holding it, and just spend a bit of time. I always hammer it because this work hardens it, and also this stretches it a bit. When you've done that binding, that will take up a little bit of the girth and diameter. So if you hammer the back, it stretches it and makes it the size you want again. And there is the back of the ring, and I just want to make it a bit bigger so I can stretch it with a bit of hammering. And that's roughly it, and just neaten up anything. So spend a bit of time manipulating it, but really that is it. And if you wanted a bigger bead in the middle, you'd do exactly the same thing. It would just end up being surrounded with more wire. So thank you for watching.